My talk's going to be relatively short today, and I'll give most of the floor to my colleagues, Melinda and Ben, whose talk's hopefully a lot more exciting regarding their special programs which they've got jointly, or not jointly, but at JASANZ and STANS Australia. My talk will focus on what we're doing at NATA to support and further develop our technical assessors. So, a key strength of NATA assessments is our peer review process, which is dependent on our pool of voluntary technical assessors. Technical assessors use their scientific knowledge and interpersonal skills, which are a key to doing good assessments, to review what a lab does to confirm that it is technically competent. NATA assessments, as you all know, are about technical competence. So we're heavily reliant on the skill sets of our technical assessors. An assessment not only serves as an exercise for doing this, meaning reviewing technical competence, but also provides an opportunity for a collegiate exchange of views, allowing both the assessors and the lab staff to gain from the experience. Those of you probably would have heard a similar thing mentioned if you would have gone to the earlier presentation about being a benefit of a technical assessor. It's a two-way thing. It's not just about somebody coming into your lab, seeing what you do, but also taking back. So NATA's current model is unique amongst accreditation bodies worldwide. So most or all of them pay their technical assessors or technical experts. We do not. Question often is why? Why? And I like to say that it's historical. NATA, as you know, was set up in 1947 on a voluntary basis. And I think that ethos in the Australian culture is quite unique, where people do want to give back to society. So we have about 2,500 technical assessors. That's 2,500. And about 40% of those are engaged in assessments in any given year. We cover all their costs. So in terms of assessment, so it's nothing for the technical assessors in terms of monetary gain or even expense, but they give their time graciously to us voluntarily. So technical assessors are active members of industry, and main source is overwhelmingly from our accredited labs, most assessors. So I don't have the stats in front of me, but if we said 95% come from accredited labs, it'd be fairly close. And then a small number come from academia. And most of those would also from non-accredited entities are in niche areas where the technical expertise is very limited. Technical assessors may not hold top positions or those in authority within their organisation necessarily. Some have already had long careers, distinguished careers, and others have limited years, but are recognised as having knowledge and are considered subject matter experts in their areas. We are seeing in more recent times that individual lab staff are becoming more focused in their area of expertise. So the days of a generalist or an all-rounder is slipping past. Thus, the breadth of knowledge and exposure to gain more experience can be limited in the assessor's own laboratory. Becoming an NATA technical assessor provides, as I've mentioned earlier on, an opportunity for both existing and budding laboratory staff to apply their knowledge externally from their lab by seeing what happens in other laboratories, but also the opportunity for them to learn. So it's very much a collegiate exchange of ideas or views. So that's a bit of a background, and I'm trying to paint a picture for you why we value our technical assessors at NATA. So recognising this value, we at NATA have invested and continue to do so in developing and supporting them. I know today's session is about youth. Us supporting and developing our technical assessors is not necessarily about youth, but maintaining the support structures there for promoting technical knowledge and keeping it abreast. Sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. So, some of the key initiatives which we have done, and this is a key initiative at NATA. It's part of our strategic plan, and it's led by our technical manager, Danielle Dicker, who, if you were here yesterday, you would have heard her talking about validation and verification. We've got an ongoing project, and this project never starts and never ends. It's just there, but it is being supported through our strategic key initiative, so we've got budget allocated for it, which is good. Just to go through some of the things which we have done already, and that's we've introduced the portal. So those of you who are technical assessors will be familiar with the portal, and you say, why have we introduced the portal? One of the key things is increased security and confidentiality of information. Emails or snail mail is not the best way of exchanging information. I can make you laugh, and you'll probably not laugh, you'll probably cringe, but we've had NATA packages floating down the Parramatta River in a confidential bag in the past. Things happen, but that's going back years ago, just to point the extreme. But the portal does offer us security. The other thing, it allows us to go paperless. Everyone may not be happy necessarily to go paperless, but basically we've gone paperless as far as we can. And that's our contribution to saving a few trees. So that's a positive for us. The other thing, technical assessors can update their own statistics or demographics experience in terms of what they can or cannot assess. So that's a lot more easier now. You do it online, submit the form, we go through a review process at our end to say yes or no. The other thing that we've implemented, and that's very recently, and we have had a bit of feedback as to the need for this or benefit, but all assessors now have to confirm their ongoing continuing professional development once every 2 years. And that's key. It's pretty simple. It gives you a whole lot of options what you can tick off, and it always has the other box option. If you don't meet any of the above, you tell us what you're doing to maintain your competency. Why is that important? For us, it's important because we promote NATA assessments as a peer review process. So we have to have hand on our heart to be able to confirm that our technical assessors are true peers by maintaining their currency of knowledge. Another initiative are sector forums and webinars. We're trying to do a lot more of those on key topics that are relevant to technical assessors, so providing them with relevant information. So just to rattle off a couple of them that we've done of late, we've had an inspection webinar in December 2023 on the determination of exposure limits for electromagnetic energy. I know if it's a tongue twister for you or a mouthful, and probably not of interest to any of you in this room, but that's a type of topic which is relevant to our technical assessors. Another one, we've done a series of webinars in March of this year on the TGA IVD framework for pathology labs. So that was an information session for not only our technical assessors, but also our laboratories. So they're clear on the regulatory framework for IVDs. Another highly welcomed initiative has been the implementation of accessing Australian standards online. That's been a great one taken up by our assessors, but we have had to stress accessing Australian standards that NATA gives you access to because you're a volunteer on our behalf is for the purposes of an assessment. It's not to drop your own subscription and then grab all of the Australian standards that you need. At the end of the day, that's not only a cost to us, but obviously it's not the right thing to do. So I'm just stressing that, but if you're a technical assessor, you've got access to Australian standards online for the purposes of doing an assessment. Our assessor welcome pack, we've updated that. So you get now a backpack, okay, that's fine. But our assessor information document, which is a guidance document on what you need to do when you do an assessment or the skill sets that are required, has been augmented with 2 new appendices, one of them on validation and verification, which those of you who attended Danielle's session yesterday would have heard about. Once again, that information, it's probably about 4 pages of information. It's not going to tell you how a laboratory needs to perform validation and verification, but it gives you the overview of the key points you need to take into account. So that's informative and also supportive information to the technical assessors. The other appendix which we've included in there are common assessment findings. And it's not to say this is the only type of findings which you need to hone in on when you're doing an assessment or to look out for, but it gives you a flavour of the type of issues. So it's building capacity, awareness and knowledge to our technical assessors. We will be including other appendices as this project keeps on rolling on. And one of the final things, key initiatives we've done is to revamp our technical assessor development program. Things we want to do or are looking at include a promotional flyer. So I believe there's a hard copy out there in the foyer available, which has just come out. So it's selling the benefits of being a technical assessor. The other thing we're looking at is a series of certificates for appointment, participation or recognition. We've got those in some areas already, especially the participation certificate in our legal and clinical area. So if you're doing human pathology or medical imaging assessments, you do get a certificate of participation, and that feeds into your own professional CPD requirements. So it facilitates you get points for those, for participating in a NATA assessment. And finally, we are looking at going online a lot more with our training. So both the technical assessor development program, to do it modularised, for example, so you can do it in your own time, but also putting together a lot more interactive online training modules on various topics. So once again, building capacity and knowledge. So that's it for me for the moment, and it gives you a flavour of what we're doing to support our technical assessors. It's ongoing.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Russell. I'm one of the engagement managers at Standards Australia. I predominantly look after the consumer products, public safety, health and the mining sectors. But I'm here today to talk to you about Standards Australia's Next Generation program, or we call it NEXTgen. So the NEXTgen program, it's going to show up like this, sorry guys. So the NEXTgen program is about, very similar to what Nana's talking about, developing the next generation of contributors to our work that we do. So Standards Australia itself, to give you some context, has been operating since 1922. So there's not many people alive today in Australia that have been around before Standards. We rely on volunteers, much like NATA does, and we get them from various different industry groups, consumer groups, government departments, but these are all people who generally have full-time jobs. Maybe some are semi-retired, but predominantly these are experts in their field who are contributing their own personal time, often, to help us with our work. These people come from what we define as nominating organisations. So we generally work with national member-based bodies. We don't work with independent companies more often than not. We try and make sure that the representatives on the individual committees are representing the broadest user base possible, and we get them for a specific stakeholder interest category that they're there to represent, whether it be a manufacturers association or a retail association or a consumer group or a regulator. We want that perspective. We don't want the one person. The committee members are then pulled from those organisations. So we don't approach, for example, John and say, John, we want you on a committee. We approach NATA and we say, listen, we've got a committee. We need the perspective of someone who understands testing and what we would need to go into a standard to figure out how you can actually test to the standard in the first place. And then NATA goes, great, well, John's the guy for you. John's going to represent NATA on that committee. We say, fantastic, thank you very much. Lots of buttons to push. So that committee member, let's stick with John for a second, becomes the voice of NATA to that Standards Australia committee. So he's not speaking as John, he's not speaking as his employer, unless his employer is NATA in this case, and he is representing that viewpoint, and he's supposed to report back and then come back to the committee and come back with that perspective rather than his individual one. Now, the average Standards Australia committee member, they volunteer for approximately, I think it's eight and a half years? Yeah, about 8.5 years. And through that time, they are developing an incredible amount of IP, specific information, whether it be a revision, quite often a brand new standard. They're literally contributing to something that didn't exist before. And we have them generally, as I said, there for an average of about 8.5 years. We've had well over 1,000 volunteers who stay on for 20 plus years in the time that we've been around, which is absolutely great for continuity. But what happens then when they inevitably change roles, retire, are no longer able to represent their organisation on the committee anymore? Huge gap to fill. So Standards Australia's NEXTgen program is designed to try and identify promising individuals now within the different organisations that we already work with, rather than having to wait and rely on someone who's going to replace John when John finally hangs up his boots. We're trying to find the people we can get in now, introduce them via a program where they learn what we do, they learn how we do it, they learn why it's important, they learn from their peers, they get to shadow committees, they get to learn now and be ready, rather than just pop in when the previous person's gone and there's no handover and we're stuck with a big gaping hole in our work. These participants that we get, they're selected based on their expertise, their impact on standards development, the relevance to the work that they do, the organisation that they work for. We don't just take anyone off the street. There's a process. They have to submit their CV, they do interviews. We make sure we're creating these candidates quite carefully. We understand that in the interest of the business community and the protection of critical IP, we have to make an investment to keep that process going. So these people aren't just going to come to us out of the kindness of their heart. We've got to do a little bit to get these people in the door, particularly younger people. So if not now, when? If we don't do this now, when are we going to do it? Do we wait till everyone retires? Do we wait till we have a hole? We really can't afford to. We'll end up with people who don't understand how the process works, without experience, no continuity, and business continuity is so important. If we had no continuity in some of the standards and the rules and the guidelines that underpin our society, we'd be in pretty dire straits. So this program is designed to accelerate the development of those people and accelerate the next generation of standards contributors. So we bring together the highly experienced and the next wave thinkers, and we're helping them collaborate now and not waiting for those handovers. If we have no overlap, we have no continuity. I know I've said it, I'm saying it again, but if we have no overlap, we have no continuity, and we'll be up the creek without a paddle in a very bad way. So what does it actually mean to be a NEXTgen participant? I think we all understand now why it's important. The program goes for about 8 months. We tweak it every year, but generally it goes for about 8 months, entry by application only. We administer it by having about 20 odd standards volunteers that work in the background to support the program via administration. We have mentors that are assigned to the participants as well. We have a lot of people in the background that are helping us with data retrieval, with getting the committee set up, a lot of the administration that goes into it. We have a further 25 to 30 mentors, as many as we have in the program. So each participant is assigned one person from Standards Australia. We try and make it as relevant as possible. So if it's someone who comes to us, let's say from an electrical background, we try and find a project manager, an engagement manager, a technical writer who's worked on an electrical committee. Something says a bit of relevance, they've got something to talk about, but everyone gets an individual mentor that's there at their beck and call basically throughout the time. And it's a mixture of face-to-face and online training. So there's a number of virtual classes that we do, virtual modules. We teach them how to draft, we teach them the rules of drafting, we teach them what a nominating organisation does, what standards are for, where we fit in the ISO system, etc. And then in conjunction with those online courses, we also fly them down, or up, left, right, wherever from, into Sydney to do, I think it's 2 or 3 times a year, to come in and actually do face-to-face sessions together with their peers, spend some time with their mentors when they're around as well, meet a few of the committee members and actually have face-to-face time, which is really important. And part of our investment in that process is we fund their flights and we fund their accommodation. It also means we restrict the size of the cohort, so we just don't have budget for 100 people. We have 100 plus, 150 plus applications every year. We just can't pay for them all. So we restrict our cohort size, but we make sure that we're making that investment in those people's future. And we also make sure that we have specific training topics that these particular people are going to be interested in, and we create little projects for them and little assignments and things like that that they do and get along with. So these are a few of the training modules that we have. So Introduction to Welder Standards, how to write a standard, basically just the big picture of what we do. We get into the weeds a little bit with it, but this is the bare basics of what it means to be a standards committee member, and we make sure they understand how it works before they make any sort of commitment to ongoing involvement with standards as well. And at the end of it, they get a little bit of a graduation ceremony. We get them in and we give them, I think, a little, I don't think it's a fake diploma, but we give them a little certificate, and we make a big fuss over them, and we put some food on for them and everything like that, and let them know that what they have accomplished is quite important. So in terms of outputs, what's Standard Australia get out of all this? Well, we're looking for diversity for the sake of innovation. So we're not talking about diversity to fill a quota, we're talking about diversity of thought. If the same 15 people are developing the same standard for 25 years, it's not really going to change much. It's probably not going to progress with the times. We're not going to get any wonderful new and weird ideas. And we might only want a couple of, it's the 1%ers. And that's what we're going to get to adding younger people and more diverse people of all different backgrounds throughout the program. But that's how you get diversity through change. We're looking for a new generation's problem-solving approach. We don't want to hear how it's been done before. We have a whole committee of people who write the rules and the regulation, well, not the regulation, sorry, but the rules and the requirements and what goes on, and they've been writing it forever. We want to hear something new. We want to know what we can improve. We don't just want to do the same thing over and over again. We have a 70% conversion rate from participant to from the participants of the program to a co-opted seat for 2 years. So what that means is at the end of the program, well, throughout the program, they shadow different committees and they observe and they see how the committees work and they get to experience it and see what goes on. For the next 2 years after that program, once they've graduated, they get to essentially take a seat on the committee themselves. They don't get to vote, but they can get in there, they're helping with the drafting, they're a participating member of the committee in that sense, just without the vote, but they get to sit on that committee for 2 years, and that's basically it. They're torture tested then, they're trained, they know what they're doing, they've got the full experience now, and at the end of that 2 years, their organisation basically considers them good to go. A number of them actually just jump straight onto committees as well. My mentee this year, he's actually going to jump onto probably our most challenging, oldest, long-standing committee, EL1, who do the wiring rules. It's a pretty intense committee. So he's going to be straight out of the program and straight into EL1. So I'm pretty proud of him. He's done a great job there. And we actually have quite a high rate of progression for people becoming full committee members and chair people as well. So we're really proud of that part as well. We also are starting to get them involved in our proposal process as well. So part of the program next year is going to be encouraging them to look at ideas while they're going through the program for new standards, new ideas, revisions that we might need to make, holes they find, and actually have hands-on experience doing that during the program. And that's going to help us come up with new projects that we need to do as well, which is great. And it also just helps us identify future opportunities in standards development. You know, these guys are coming there with questions. They're not coming there with answers generally. So they're pushing us and asking us to think more about what we're doing and ask more of ourselves as well. So this is just a little bit of feedback from what our graduates have said. If I've got to push the button again. So the overall satisfaction score, or CSAT score, so last year was 95%. This year it's 98%, so it went up a little bit, but it's a pretty good number, as you can see there. This would be, I didn't realise it would come up so slowly. So a few specific things to call out in the feedback that we had. We asked them for their knowledge of standards and the infrastructure space and what we do before the workshop. 63% said they had low to none. 29% said they had a moderate amount. Then we asked them for their knowledge after the workshop. 28% said they then had a moderate amount. 71% went high. So this is from 2023. That's a huge jump, obviously. These people really feel like they got a lot out of the program. Fast forward to 2024. Same question, 55% low to none, 33% moderate. Then after the workshop, 24% moderate, 76% high. So what that tells us is it's a fairly consistent number. So the program seems to be covering off what needs to be covered. We're getting the same results generally, and quite good results, year on, year out. These are a few quotes lifted verbatim from the feedback forms. I won't read them all, but I'll call out Keith though. Keith's an excellent trainer, so Keith runs our program. He's incredibly passionate about it, and I love working with him on it. And we'll go forward now to let someone else talk for a second, and we've got a quick little video that hopefully should play, and that will be the end of me, I think, assuming the video works. No, video didn't work. Try again. No, all right, we'll move on, never mind. So just a little bit into what's next for the program. So as I said at the start of the presentation, we're always trying to make the program better year in, year out. So in terms of future opportunities, we're looking at getting into universities, which is something I'm really excited about. I was very lucky enough to spend some time in India last year, and the Bureau of Indian Standards have an absolutely fantastic university program. They're actually in high schools as well. They have standards clubs, which just blows me away that teenagers care at all. And it's quite a prestigious job, I believe, to have a job at BIS in India. So they've got a great university program. We're talking to them. We're talking to France, who also have quite a good university program as well. We're in the early stages. We're looking at what can we actually offer university students to participate, what's the currency that they're actually going to get out of it, how can we help them get passionate about a future in standards, which is always challenging, and how we can communicate to them that what they're doing and what they might do with us will help their future careers and not hinder it. And once we kind of get that right, we're then going to look into different kinds of partner opportunities with universities across Australia. And then our alumni program. So we're expanding our alumni program this year. We're looking at doing all sorts of weird and wonderful things, cash referrals, getting a committee together of alumni members. Basically what we're trying to do is turn our previous participants into very public ambassadors for the program. So it's all well and good for me to stand up here and talk about how good it is, but we want them to go back to their workplaces and go to other conferences and talk about how good our program was. So we're looking at all sorts of different ways to expand it, and we'd love to hear from any of you if you do have any ideas yourselves. But yeah, that's the NEXTgen program. I think we're under time, very close. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Yeah, please.
What's the average age of your NEXTgen?
Of the NEXTgen, yeah. So we talk a lot about getting younger participants involved.
Yeah.
They're not 21, so don't be fooled by the grey hair and my beard and my hair. I am very much at the younger end of what you see in our standards committees. The average age of a standards committee member, I think, is about 60, 65. So we're looking at the sort of, and there's no rule on this, but early 30s to 40s is where we're getting our NEXTgen participants from, more often than not, yeah. Not youth. Well, not youth as the rest of the world sees it, but in terms of standards development, they're babies.
So, good afternoon. I'm Melinda Varley. I'm the Learning and Development Manager at JASANZ, and I've been responsible for the development and the implementation of our JASANZ Futures program. So, JASANZ, hopefully over the last few days you've got a sense of who JASANZ is. Like NATA, we're an accreditation body, but we accredit certification bodies in different areas, so more around product certification, management system certification, and a range of other schemes that underpin those areas. So the goals of this Futures program, a lot of what Ben had to say was very, very relevant to our program as well. So we're looking to encourage younger generation to get involved in conformity assessment. But our program is more about learning about the whole ecosystem of conformity assessment, rather than being an opportunity for us to get some new assessors or get some new technical experts to come into JASANZ. We're trying to support the whole industry. So it is really about encouraging young people to get engaged with conformity assessment, and there's so many different ways that can be done, which I'll talk about as I go through the information on the program. So who are we looking for? Young people, emerging industry experts. They might be working in product space, so it might be developing products, might be engineers, might be working with management systems, so there might be a quality manager or a work health and safety manager. And they want to know more about conformity assessment to support their careers. We talk young, again, like the Standards NEXTgen program. We don't put an age on the applications, but most of our applicants have done a qualification of some sort, have been working in industry for, 2 or 3 years, maybe even up to 5 or more. Some of them even a lot longer than that. But they have demonstrated to us a real interest in knowing more about conformity assessment and how that impacts what they do in industry, and also to build for their career for the future. So, yeah, we're looking for young people, different backgrounds, have some qualifications, and that could be just a Certificate 3 in something versus a PhD in whatever they're studying or working in. So about the program, very similar to NEXTgen's program. We have a great training program. We kick off with a big conference. The 2-day conference we held in Sydney this year was fantastic. We put them through a lot of virtual training. So the conference is the only face-to-face component in our program. And we put that in because it is such a great networking opportunity for them. They get together as a cohort. This year we've got 23 people on the program. And then the rest of the program is done virtually, but a lot of live virtual sessions. So they're learning with a facilitator, they're listening to webinars, meeting other industry stakeholders throughout that program. So the conference, they build their networks across industry, and they also get the opportunity to apply it to a major project. So it could be an issue in industry, it could be an opportunity in industry where conformity assessment can have a role to play. So I'll talk a little bit more about some of the project topics that we've got covered this year shortly. We open every year in January for applications, but at the end of my presentation I'll have a QR code, so if you have interest already in the program for next year, you can jot your name down and we can keep in contact. We close around the end of February and we invite applications from across Australia and New Zealand. We are Trans-Tasman as an organisation working to both of the Australian and New Zealand governments, so the opportunity is open to both Australian and New Zealand individuals. They must have a right to work in Australia or New Zealand. As I said, we like to see that they have some qualifications. We have had applicants come through that don't have formal qualifications but have a bunch of experience that is really relevant and important. So we have a look at what they've put forward in their application. Demonstrated interest in conformity assessment. We need them to write a little bit about why this program's important, what they want to learn about conformity assessment and how they're going to use it in the future. So we really want to get those that are really keen to be involved. It's a 4-month program. We run it from April through to July. And, they get to hear from so many industry experts. There's a lot of presenters here today and yesterday from the Technical Infrastructure Partners, so JASANZ, NATA, Standards Australia and the National Measurement Institute. They all come to our conference, they attend our webinars, they all present. Plus we add the New Zealand Technical Infrastructure Partners, so Standards New Zealand, the Measurements Laboratory and, off the top of my head, IAN, so International Accreditation New Zealand. They're all actively engaged in our program. They volunteer their time as presenters for us, which is just fabulous. We also have presenters at the conference from both the Australian and New Zealand government departments or agencies that we work to. They come and talk about why conformity assessment is so important to government programs, trade initiatives, etc. We get regulators to come and talk. We get scheme owners to come and talk about the value to them of accreditation and certification. So we really hear about the whole conformity assessment ecosystem. We hear from everyone involved end to end, including those organisations that are certified. So they come and talk about why certification of their product or their management system is so important to their businesses. So it's such a great learning opportunity for all of our participants. As I mentioned, we've got the Futures Conference, 2-day live conference we held in Sydney this year, which was a fabulous conference. Training program, lots of different courses, and I'll talk a little bit more about them, and then the major project as well. They get an opportunity to engage with the JASANZ assessment of a certification body, so they get to see in action these audits or these assessments that are undertaken. We run some virtual knowledge cafes, so every fortnight we have a 1-hour webinar session where we have some industry experts attend. There's no set formula on what that topic or what the discussion will be. It's a great opportunity for them to just come along with their questions. Maybe they might come and talk about their project. Hey, I'm a bit stuck on something, or you're from NATA. Can you tell us a little bit more about this? Or who can we talk to at, I don't know, Standards Australia that can give us a bit more information on this? So the Knowledge Cafes are a new initiative in this year's program, and they are working really well. And then a webinar series, and I'll mention some of those webinars in a couple of slides' time. So the conference, we really do focus on that end-to-end of conformity assessment. We have presentations from all of the technical infrastructure partners. Majority of them are live at the conference, some of them are virtually, and they hear from everybody, government, etc. And I really do want to do a big thank you and shout out to all of our technical infrastructure partners for their support in our program, because our program is hopefully in the future, through the participants' knowledge, going to hopefully be important for their organisations as well, and they may get someone for their standards committees. Hopefully will join the NEXTgen program as well, may go and work at NATA as a technical expert, or they may come and work for JASANZ, sit on one of our committees or our technical scheme development panels as well. And in fact, 2 of our participants from last year's program have joined. One has joined our accreditation review board, and one has been invited to join our technical advisory council, and they're volunteer positions as well. But they've been invited because they are so good at what they do, and they've learned so much. So the conference, followed by the training course. There's just some of the topics that we cover off on. The management system certification or product certification training is a 3-day course that they will learn from a facilitator, all about the requirements of the certification bodies have to meet related to those topics. So they're learning about a particular standard and how it's applied and how it's used in industry. And what that does is help them understand when that certification body comes into their organisation to certify their management system, and they're part of that process, they're going to have so much better understanding of what the certification body needs from them. So really valuable training for them as well. Webinar program, this is just an example of this year's program. Lots of panel discussions, lots of fabulous topics. We take them through all the different types of evaluation. So management system certification, inspection, product certification, validation and verification, that's been mentioned a few times today, and certification of persons. People actually can get certified. I find that really fascinating. And then, yeah, as I said, a bunch of panel discussions. Our very last webinar, very last session of the program brings our technical infrastructure partners together on a panel, and we talk to them about, okay, you've done this program, what's next? What can you do in this conformity assessment ecosystem to further support, you know, being part of a standards development or building a scheme with JASANZ or, you know, getting engaged in some way or form in the future, or just take that knowledge back into industry and really be an advocate for accreditation and certification. So get back into your business and say, hey guys, why don't we certify our something? Maybe that's an important thing for us to look at doing in the future. I talked about the major project. This is actually a really interesting process that we've put into play, and I think it's one of the best parts of this program. They come along, they do some training with us, and then we give them a project topic in groups of about 3, and we let them loose. You know, here's a few people you can go and talk to that'll be able to support you in your project development. And then at the end of it, they come back and they present back to JASANZ, industry stakeholders, etc., on their project, and also report in a written report on what their recommendations are. There's 2 of the topics out of the 8 that we're tackling this year. Obviously, AI has to come into the discussion, but consider and explore how AI could be used to expedite and improve assessment or audit outcomes. And we've made reference to the new standard 42001 that has been released recently. And then the second one, study the unique challenges faced by small and medium enterprises in obtaining and maintaining management system certifications. What are those challenges, and what could we actually do to help small businesses, you know, in this process of certification? It can be very expensive to certify a management system, for example, or a product. So, you know, what are the challenges in understanding what they need to do? So, just moving along, I've already mentioned all of those programs. We run the program through our JASANZ Academy, which is an online training academy where all of our courses are delivered. We deliver training for lots of other different stakeholders within conformity assessment as well. There's our fantastic bunch of 13 participants from last year, all from different product organisations. Had fabulous, that was our inaugural program, so we were just rapt that we got 13 people on the program. There's some nice things that they had to say about us. One in particular here up in the middle, he said, I feel so much more confident now in having the conversations with the certification bodies or whoever's coming in to talk to me about my business. So he was one of our older participants, but, you know, I feel really gratified that he can go back now and have the right conversations and use the right terminology was what he liked as well. I've just been given the wrap up, so I'm just moving quickly through. This is this year's cohort from our conference here in Sydney. There's a couple of presenters there as well, but really great bunch of people working in management systems from various industries, from the nuclear regulator through to Victorian Police, through to laboratories, to all sorts of different places. There is the QR code if you are interested in the program. If you have people in your organisation that might benefit from the program, please pop in an expression of interest now, and we'll keep you engaged as we move towards the 2025 program. So thank you very much.